War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we turn now to the story of a foreign student who came to Texas on a student visa, was sentenced to 15 years in prison without parole Friday. His name is Adnan Mirza. He was convicted in May for conspiring to provide material support to the Taliban and for unlawfully possessing firearms. While federal officials hailed the verdict, Adnan's friends and supporters say he's innocent and that he was set up and framed by an undercover FBI informant. Adnan is a Pakistani citizen who was born and grew up in Kuwait. He came to the United States on a student visa to attend Houston Community College. He spent time volunteering at a program to feed Houston's homeless and work with local Muslim community groups. In 2005 and 2006, Adnan went on a number of camping trips with friends in North Houston. It turned out the FBI had recruited one of those friends, Jim Coates, as an undercover informant. Another man in the group, Malik Muhammad, also turned out to be an undercover FBI agent. They recorded conversations with Adnan and others and took pictures of them holding guns. The government said the undercover investigation revealed Adnan and others had engaged in weekend training and practice sessions with firearms to prepare for a jihad. They also said Adnan had intended to send money to the Taliban. Adnan denied the charges. Instead of accepting a plea bargain, which would have meant he would be out of jail now, he went on trial, and he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years without parole Friday. I spoke to Adnan from prison the day before his sentencing. I began by asking him what he was doing in Houston before his arrest.
I was a volunteer with a couple of Islamic organizations in Houston that were involved in mostly charity work, including like relief and also media, which included like having a TV show on the local public access channel and, trying to address Muslim issues that were not being addressed like in the mainstream, and trying to answer questions that the indigenous people in the United States had about Islam and Muslim. And the relief activities included feeding the homeless on a regular basis, taking care of the refugee population. In Houston, we have an extensive refugee population in Houston from Africa, from all war-torn countries, basically. I used to try to, get them food and food supplies and books and toys for children and stuff like that.
What was your reaction to the verdict, finding you guilty? Now you face 40 years in prison.
Well, I wasn't surprised. I mean, based on how things went in the courtroom, like my counsel, he did not put up a good defense. We were not. I did not spend a whole bunch of time with my counsel. And I didn't expect him to know anything about the case when he didn't speak to me about it. So it wasn't unexpected. But I still have the appeals process, and hopefully that will come through for me.
Adnan, take us through your arrest. What happened?
Well, right now I do have the benefit of hindsight. So what initiated the investigation was a regular traffic stop in Big Bend State Park, where the confidential informant and my co-defendant, Mr. Williams, were stopped by the park ranger for speeding. And the park ranger basically flagged the Border Patrol to check their vehicle out when they left the park. And when they went through the Border Patrol checkpoint, they contacted the FBI, and the FBI basically detained them for a few hours and questioned them and let them go back to Houston. Once they were in Houston, both the co-defendant and the confidential informant, they were again approached by a different unit of the FBI, but their response was different. The confidential informant was, very open to their questioning, but my co-defendant was reluctant, so he decided to talk to them only in the presence of an attorney.
And who was that co-defendant?
Mr. Williams. And his attorney apparently now he's working with the government as the anti-terrorist spy lawyer in D.C., Mr. Hamdani. And he was supposed, I mean, back then he was working on behalf of the ACLU, and he represented Mr. Williams with the FBN. And after our case, he was offered a job with the government, and now that's what he's doing in D.C.
Who is Kobe Williams? How did you come to know him?
Well, after 9/11, I mean, I came to the United States in August of 2001, and 9/11 just happened within 18 days. And after what I saw on the TV, it was like, and I thought that it was important for me to get involved in the media and somehow, tell their ground realities in the Middle East. I just felt it was an obligation on my part to educate people, because I was in Kuwait when it got invaded by Saddam Hussein. I mean, and 9/11 was almost similar in that sense. That was, and I could see that there would be a war, and I just wanted to, do something so that I could try to stop it, by educating the people. Since it's a democracy here, I mean, people really are supposed to be governments of the people, by the people, for the people.
And so what happened afterwards? How did you meet up with Kobe Williams?
Well, I was introduced to this group that was along the same lines, working for the media, and it was a neighbor who introduced me to the group, and that's where I came across confidential informant, and who was not a confidential informant by then, and Kobe Williams and other people. And we started, trying to find ways where we could express our views through the media and nonviolent means, basically. And it started off in, I believe, November of 2001, and I have known Mr. Williams ever since that day.
And so how were you picked up? How were you arrested?
Well, with my experience with Mr. Williams, and I just knew that he was a very, a person who had he was a Muslim, but he just came into Islam through a sudden change, and he was very inquisitive about questions, and I just knew him to not be able to understand things in the way that everybody else does. So he was always curious about things. So when he was after his encounter with the FBI, his views changed about the United States. He wanted to leave the country just to get out of here. He just, and I tried to stop him. I said, well, I have come from the Middle East, and it's not like what you think it is over there.
You're talking now about Kobe Williams?
Right, right. So, but the confidential informant by then was trying to instigate Mr. Williams into saying that, well, you should try to, get out of here and go to Iraq and Afghanistan. And my whole thing was to try to stop Mr. Williams. But it seemed to me that, that Mr. Williams could not do anything by himself. It was just like he was very impulsive and reactionary, and that if I was able to stall him for a while, he would change his mind. And that's how I got into the thing. Everybody around us tried to counsel Mr. Kobe and telling him, this is now how things are, but he was just very rigid about his views, that he wanted to leave the United States.
And the confidential informant was Jim Coates?
Right, right.
And who was Jim Coates? How did you understand him as a part of your group?
Well, when I joined the group, Mr. Jim Coates and Mr. Williams were already working with that group. And Mr. Jim Coates back then was very articulate, and he was basically spokesman for the Muslim community. I mean, that's how I understood. And him and I were involved in training the law enforcement in Houston, like HPD and even Department of Justice, on sensitivity training programs. So I knew him and his ex-wife through those programs.
You worked with the Houston Police Department sensitivity training?
Yes, yes. I was me, myself, Mr. Jim Coates, his wife, and we conducted the class together. I usually did the technical aspects, but sometimes I was also involved in the classes. I was always present.
So we don't have much time. Talk about what you were charged with, what you were convicted of.
I was charged with conspiracy to provide materials to put to terrorists, which is, in this case, is the Taliban. And the amount that is alleged that I have sent is like about $350. And the other charges were like firearms related, and it's a conspiracy to possess firearms by an illegal alien.
Who did you send the money to? We
sent the money to a hospital which cared for the widows and orphans in a part of Pakistan.
So are you denying you sent it to Taliban fighters?
Yeah, definitely. I do not agree with that. With the Taliban or Al-Qaeda, because I know they've been created by the Pakistani government during the 80s to fight the Russians and stuff. So I mean, to me, to support somebody like that is just, I don't believe in that concept at all.
And the issue of firearms, the issue